Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in the field inform, educate and inspire the community to be healthier, more balanced and live the lifestyle they love. Our first guest today is Marc Noyce, and he's an urban food specialist, and the topic we'll be discussing is the joys and benefits of creating your own urban garden. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for coming. So Marc, what are the joys and benefits of creating your own urban garden?
The joys of urban gardening are multiple. There are so many joys of urban gardening, which include your own nutrition, your mental health, contacting and being in contact with your friends and reconnecting with your family that you haven't seen, your long lost aunt that you haven't seen for a while. Urban gardening just gives you that excuse to knock on the door and say, hey, I've got some food. Would you like to share a meal with me? I grew this in my own garden. And that's one of the things about being able to give, being able to look after something, looking after your own nutrition, looking after your friends and family. And that's really what the joys of urban farming is about. It's also about knowing where my food comes from. You know, growing your own food, you know what went into it, you watched it grow, you watched it mature, and then you know exactly where that food comes from. And not only that, it's fun. It is just fun to come home and see your garden. Like sometimes I talk to my plants. After a long day, I go out there and I say, hey plants, how are you going? And they seem happy to see me because if you give them the right things in terms of sunlight, water, food, they look after themselves. So not only can we have individuals growing food, we can actually have communities growing food. And I get involved in schools, I get involved in community gardens, and where from nothing a community comes together, and sometimes people are quite isolated and they don't have any friends, they don't have any family nearby, and they're living in a very small space. So to be able to come to a urban farm and meet people, share food and share stories of how to grow food and tips and tricks. Schools are absolutely fantastic mechanisms to get young people into urban farming. Learning from the ground up how to look after yourself, how to look after others, from growing your own food at home and getting in contact with your food and learning about where your food comes from is just setting up a whole next level, next generation of urban farmers to be self-sufficient.
Marc, I live in a small urban environment. How can I overcome some of those challenges in creating my garden?
In cities, we live in a concrete jungle. Sometimes there's not a lot of space, sometimes there's not a lot of light, and we're busy too. So sometimes we don't have a lot of time to give to our plants. So these are real challenges. Wind's a really big problem in urban environments. It can get very windy. There are stray pets, there are bugs, there are things that want to eat all our produce. It seems like everything's against us in an urban environment. But these challenges can be overcome when you have the right technology, when you have the right approach, when you get your nutrition right for your plants, when you get the watering right, and if you can get your plants to self-water, if you can get your compost, you can close your nutrient loop by composting your own green waste at home, turning that into a resource for plants to grow, and closing our nutrient loop is really a great way of being self-sufficient and overcoming these challenges that cities have where our food waste is a one-way street. We can turn that around. Cities also have abundant stormwater or rainwater runoff, so we have an abundance of water, we have an abundance of nutrition in terms of food waste. We can turn those around in an urban environment to grow healthy, nutritious food, and we can do it in really small spaces.
What are some top tricks and tricks for our audience to create their own urban gardens?
It depends on what you're going to grow. So if you want to grow tomatoes, for example, they need a lot of sunlight. They need like up to 10 hours of sunlight a day. If you want to grow lettuce and herbs, well, some of these plants can survive and thrive, if you like, on only 4 hours of sunlight. So it really depends on where your balcony's placed, where your sunlight comes in and what you want to grow. So knowing a little bit about the types of plants you want to grow really helps set up where you need to put them, helps set up your urban farm in terms of what produce you're going to get out, and you can grow a lot of food in a very small space. In some cases you can grow up to 25 kilos worth of food in just 1 square metre, which is amazing. So if you think about what an average person would consume in Australia, and that's 75 kilos of vegetables per annum. We should eat 150, but only 5% of Australians get to 150 kilograms of food, vegetable matter per annum. So we can get our average food consumption in only 3 square metres, which is amazing. So a tip would be find a space that's relatively sunny. Try to protect your plants from the wind as much as possible with either netting, and get yourself a wicking garden bed. Now, if you don't know a wicking garden bed, if you've ever put a dishcloth into the water, you see the water rise up out of the water up the dishcloth. Well, that's wicking. That is capillary action. So that's what draws water up from a water reservoir. And a wicking garden bed allows you to have a self-watering pot plant that has a water reservoir that is always making water available to the plants. And so if a plant has access to water whenever it needs it, it's going to be optimal, it's going to reach its full potential, and you're going to have a healthier garden every single time. Get the other things right in terms of soil nutrition, which is a high quality compost, something very fibrous to help draw that water up out of your wicking garden bed or your self-watering pot plant, and your plant will be as healthy as it possibly can. Get the right nutrition into the compost, and it'll have all the trace elements that it needs. So a good quality potting mix is essential. You can make your own potting mix by composting at home, taking your green waste and turning that into a nutritious source of food for your plants. And technology's come a long way with wicking garden beds these days. So you can have free draining and wicking in some of these systems, which is optimal.
Thanks, Marc. That's such good, useful information. If you'd like to know more about Marc Noyce and the benefits of creating your own urban garden bed, please go to his webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll have another interesting guest with another interesting topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton will be talking about natural ways to control and reverse diabetes. Welcome back. Our second guest is Lifestyle GP Dr. Avi Charlton, and we will be talking about natural ways to control and reverse diabetes. Welcome back, Dr. Avi. It's so good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
Could you tell us what is diabetes and what is the effects of diabetes on our body and mind?
For the purpose of this, we're just going to talk about type 2 diabetes. But to understand type 2 diabetes, there's a stage before we become type 2 diabetic. We call it insulin resistance. So there's a lot of people that are insulin resistant. Actually, a big population of people, up to 80% of the population, can be insulin resistant. These people can have signs that we can see that can show us that there's signs of insulin resistance, especially those people who have increased belly fat. They might have skin tags, or they might be tired, or going to toilet a lot to wee. They might have dark patches under the underarm. So these are the signs of insulin resistance. What happens is the body makes insulin, which is a hormone, to try and put the glucose away. So every time we eat glucose or carbohydrates which become glucose, the glucose, or we can also understand as sugar, actually goes into our bloodstream. Our body makes the insulin to put it away. If your body is managing with making more and more insulin, then you're not quite a diabetic yet. But if your body makes more and more insulin to put more and more glucose away, your body may not respond to all the insulin, and that is called insulin resistance. So what happens is if you work your insulin too hard, you get insulin resistant, and the next stage is you become a type 2 diabetic. Being a type 2 diabetic can have lots of consequences. It affects your whole body. There's too much glucose in your bloodstream, and it causes a lot of damages to everywhere in your body. Increases your risk of heart attacks, strokes, and even small arteries, like it can cause you to be blind. It can affect your kidneys and cause kidney damage, and even affect the small nerves and small blood vessels in your feet. Some diabetics have to have their toes or feet amputated and chopped off, and it's actually terrible to have diabetes.
So is there a natural way for people to control and reverse diabetes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can understand diabetes as a lifestyle condition. There are genetic causes as well. What we can do is we can modify our nutrition and eat much less carbohydrates and glucose and sugar. And don't forget, there's lots of sugar that's hidden in our processed foods and in all the packaged foods. So what we do is we eat more real foods, meat, eggs, chicken, fish, pork, lamb, protein, and we eat lots more above ground veggies like broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, tomato, mushrooms, all the good real food, and really staying away from starchy vegetables, potato, pasta, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and those vegetables. Concentrate on eating good nutrition, real foods, and we can also think about exercise. Going for walks is great, but lifting weights, building muscles, strength training, that will really help to improve our metabolic health and reduce diabetes. And also getting sunlight, getting outside into the sun, that can help to improve our metabolic health. And optimizing our sleep, making sure we sleep enough, and that will improve our metabolic health. We can bring down the glucose, regulate our circadian rhythm. Doing all these things can help you improve diabetes, reverse diabetes, and reduce insulin resistance. But we have to remember that if you are diabetic, especially those who are on medications, you need to speak to a professional who are equipped to talk about nutrition. So with regards to nutrition for diabetics, if we can reduce our carbohydrates as much as we can, reducing to a low carb diet, less than 50 grams of carbs a day, or even a ketogenic diet with much less carbohydrates, less than 20 grams a day, that'll really help to control your diabetes or even reverse diabetes. Your body can heal and your body can improve naturally with improving our insulin resistance.
What advice do you have for both of our viewers, those who have diabetes already and those who want to prevent it?
Especially for those who have diabetes already, it's important to get professional guidance, especially those who are on diabetes medications or blood pressure tablets. They need to see a health professional who are equipped to talk about this. But everyone, especially those with diabetes or insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, the advice is if they can improve on their lifestyle, they can control the diabetes or even reverse diabetes. What I mean by improve their lifestyle is they can work on their diet, reducing the carbohydrates to as low as they can, in reducing sugar, bread, potato, pasta, in eating more meat, eggs, chicken, fish, and above ground veggies. Then eating that way, they can improve their blood sugar level and control the diabetes or even reverse diabetes. They can also work on exercise. So going for walks is great, and building muscle strength training, lifting weights, that will help them improve their blood glucose level. They should optimize their sleep, making sure they sleep enough hours in the night. They can work on getting outside, exposing into sunlight, working with their circadian rhythm. Doing all that can improve their blood glucose level and control their diabetes, or even prevent them from having diabetes. In that way, we can reduce your risk of chronic conditions that are associated with diabetes.
You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much, Dr. Avi.
Thank you, Stephanie.
If you would like to know more about natural ways to control and reverse diabetes and Dr. Avi Charlton, please visit her webpage on our website healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we will be back with another interesting guest and another interesting topic.
Stay tuned, and after the break we have international meditation teacher and coach Daniella D'Amore talking about a balanced life through spiritual growth. Welcome back. We have international meditation teacher and coach Daniella D'Amore, and the topic we'll be discussing is the importance of a balanced lifestyle through spiritual growth. Welcome, Daniella.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Why is spirituality important for a balanced life?
Spirituality is just as vital in our life as it is to understand our physical body. Right? So if we focus on our physical body and don't focus on our spiritual life, then we don't have a greater sense of purpose in our life. Right? I feel that it's important to balance the physical, the emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies in order to align ourselves to perfect health and well-being, and therefore create a much more healthier and happier lifestyle. It's important to balance all four bodies.
Daniella, what's your personal journey in discovering spirituality for a balanced life?
Well, can I say I've had many journeys that really emphasize the importance of spirituality. But as a young girl, starting out in life, and when I became a woman, I had a lot of issues, health issues with my monthly cycle. And we know today it's called endometriosis, but back then it wasn't diagnosed like that. And it was, very uncomfortable, and I was just given medicine to take. Well, in my feeling, my sense was, no, this is not right. This is supposed to be natural. So why am I taking medicine? No. So I seeked out alternative ways to heal myself through this. And so I did go to a naturopath, I went to acupuncturist, and I started meditation. And over the next few years, I just found that it's, I had good months and I had bad months, but there wasn't that consistency anymore of the uncomfortable feeling. And about 7 years later, I was able to have cycles with no pain because I chose a more spiritual way of dealing with it. But at the same time, I was healing my physical body, sure, but there was a lot of emotional stuff connected to that as well. So in the process of getting that healing through various channels, my emotional body and mental body also started to change. And I became a big advocate for meditation. Meditation became part of my everyday life, and just healthier choices, health and various things that accompany that. The good thing about that is when I went through menopause as well, it just happened. Like there was no side effects or anything. And I know that that was based on the fact that I took care of myself on a physical, emotional, mental and spiritual level, right? I lived in the United States for a number of years, and during that time I was very honoured to be able to spend time with Native people there in mostly Arizona, New Mexico and South Dakota. And having spent time with the Native women there, I realised that a lot of them did not have the same issues around cycles, monthly cycles, as Western women do. So I explored that a little bit and asked them, various questions. And what I realized was it's something that's actually celebrated. When a young girl becomes a woman, there's a whole ceremony and it's celebrated, and the whole tribe celebrates. Everybody comes out and celebrates it. So it's something that's really embraced because now she can create life, right? So these Native women already start their cycle in a celebratory type way. It's not a stressful thing. And then they maintain spirituality throughout their whole life. They do women's circles and various things, women's gathering, but spirituality is very much a part of their culture, all of the tribes. So it's something that is part of their upbringing. What I found was that they just didn't stress about things the way we did, and there was no expectation, if you will, for them to be anything other than the beautiful women that they are. Whereas I feel in our society, women feel they have to step into a different role, to compete with men sometimes. So we neglect our femininity, whereas they embrace their femininity and their feminine power. And it's a beautiful thing. And they all supported each other through that. So what that helped me realize was that what I was feeling as a young girl really had some substance. Why was I thinking that? I don't know where that came from. I just knew that it was natural for women to be like this and to find the supportive system. So that was really confirming and very affirming as well, because it affirmed how powerful it is for us to embrace who we are. We as women in the Western world, our own power, our own femininity. And of course for men to embrace their own masculinity, who they are. And we play specific roles in that power. So when we can embrace that, we're much more powerful. And our bodies will reflect that, right? But in order to embrace that, there has to be that spiritual side, that meaningful, purposeful, that part of ourselves that we feel is missing. No, it's right here. We've just got to embrace it.
Daniella, that was a great story.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Do you have any advice for our viewers to have a balanced life spiritually?
Well, my advice would be to just listen to their inner self, because that's where our spiritual body resides, somewhere inside of us. Most people will say it's in your heart, but it can be anywhere. It can be in your toe. I don't know where you feel, whatever you feel. But think about how you feel when you see a sunrise or a sunset. There's something magical about that, and we can feel that magic within us. It makes us stop and look at it and go, wow. Or when a rainbow appears, and we all want the rainbow to be magic, magical, and we have a sense of that. Well, that's our spiritual body responding to that. So it's already happening. It's just a matter of making yourself more conscious of how you feel in that moment and knowing that you have those feelings throughout the day and they're important. They're an important element to who you are. And then to seek it out more. So how can you get that feeling more and more? Through what? Through whatever makes you happy, really. Whatever you do that makes you happy, whatever hobby, or maybe there's people, maybe there's places, things that you like to do that makes you feel happy inside, do more of that. That's all. Because that's called loving yourself. And the more and more you love yourself, the more and more spirituality you're living in your life.
Thank you, Daniella. That was such valuable information. If you'd like to know more about Daniella and how to have a more balanced lifestyle through spiritual growth, please go to her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And we're going to say bye-bye for now, and we'll see you next week. Stay tuned. If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.